It is June 26th, and welcome to another edition of the Believe in White Sox podcast. I am your host, Greg Moraz. Thank you so much for joining us on what is probably a Wednesday afternoon for you now. I was planning to record this last night, but I do live in an apartment complex, and I don't want to wake the neighbors up because there's neighbors to my left, there's neighbors above me, and I just want to be courteous and all that. So, probably better to record it around a little before 10 o'clock on a Pacific Coast time Wednesday morning as opposed to recording it late at night. So you get a fresh me. I got a couple of cups of coffee in me. I think that we're going to be all set and ready to go. Make sure that if you are not yet, hit like, subscribe. Also, subscribe to my YouTube channel, which I know is pretty small at this point, and it has most of my work samples from back in the days when I thought I could actually be a Major League Baseball play-by-play guy. So forgive me a little bit for that, for all of the content that you see on there, but we're going to try and get as many full shows up on YouTube as humanly possible. Actually, we're going to get every full show up on YouTube, but I do understand that it's a lot easier to put the device in your ears and be able to listen to me that way. So we've got two things we want to talk about today. I want to talk about Garrett Crochet, and I also want to talk about Eloy Jimenez. I want to talk about Garrett Crochet in terms of what he has done so far this year. So, as we lead into the first sold out White Sox game of the year, which I am not quite frankly that surprised about because of the fact that it's the only chance that White Sox fans are going to get to see Shohei Ohtani all year. And you're probably going to get a couple of Cub fans that would rather pay White Sox prices than Cubs prices to go see the guy that's probably going to win National League MVP. But why the games weren't sold out Monday night and last night is a little bit of a question mark in terms of why tonight's game is sold out. So, White Sox are now officially halfway through their season. They are the first team to 60 losses. We had said on our Monday show that we thought that they were going to potentially get to 65 losses by the end of June. That is still mathematically in play. Now, that's going to mean that they lose every single game this week because June 30th is Sunday, and including tonight, they've got 5 games left to play this week. So it is Dodgers tonight, Braves tomorrow, and then Friday is a 3-game series starting with the Colorado Rockies. So there is an opportunity to not get to 65 losses, but if you pace yourself on the point of where you're at, you're on pace for 120 losses. I have to assume that the second half is going to be better because the first half really couldn't get much worse. And I think that the breaks even out. This team is not that talented, but I think they're more talented than a team that went 21-60 over a 60 game span. Garrett Crochet started on Monday night, and he has been the really one bright spot that the White Sox have had to talk about this season. Garrett Crochet is in his first year as a major league starting pitcher. And I think it was a really interesting case study in terms of where the White Sox are as an organization, the fact that Garrett Crochet was your opening day starter. And I say this because the last time that Garrett Crochet started a game prior to opening day this year was when he was at Tennessee back in the 2020 season. Garrett Crochet actually made his big league debut in the COVID shortened 2020 season as a reliever with the White Sox. Then he was a regular reliever out of the bullpen in 2021, had to get Tommy John surgery, missed all of 22, missed a majority of 2023, but did end up coming back, and now is actually a part of this starting rotation. Garrett Crochet has been phenomenal. He's got 130 strikeouts so far this season in 17 starts. He leads Major League Baseball in games started, 94 innings pitched, 130 strikeouts, and an ERA of 3.05. And on Monday night, he gave up 5 hits, had 6 strikeouts, and 5 2/3 shutout innings. Now, the White Sox bullpen ended up giving up the game in the 7th inning, and that is why the White Sox lost 3-0. And then last night, it was Chris Flexen that got the start. Shohei Ohtani hit a leadoff home run in the first inning. White Sox scored 3 in the bottom of the first inning thanks to a 2-run homer from Andrew Benintendi and an RBI from Eloy Jimenez. But the Dodgers are just too good of an offense, and even without Mookie Betts, they held the White Sox in check and got enough runs in order to win the game. So the Dodgers crossed the 50 win plateau last night, while the White Sox crossed the 60 loss plateau. last evening. So, but Garrett Crochet is somebody that you look at his contract situation, and you look at how he's pitching, and the track record of success, whether he's been a starter or a reliever, he's a high strikeout guy. He's got great stuff. That silly walks leg kick. I remember somebody put a meme out about him when he first debuted. Remember the Monty Python skit, the man with the silly walks? Well, he's got the big high like right leg. I can't get it all the way up to the camera, but the big high right leg kick that has made him so lethal. And when you look on Baseball Reference and you see some of the statistics, the advanced statistics from this season, his strikeout rate is at 34.9%. So he's striking out almost 35% of the hitters that he's facing. Jerry Reinsdorf historically is an owner that does not like to pay starting pitchers for a long-term basis. You still have Garrett Crochet for 2 arbitration years after this year before he becomes an unrestricted free agent. I think the White Sox, they don't have to sign him this year, but I think once you get to the 2026 season, again, our goal of the show, what guys are going to be a part of this team when the White Sox are competitive again, hopefully 3 to 4 years down the road. This is your guy. And in terms of all the current starting pitchers that you have, save Drew Thorpe and Jonathan Cannon aside, and we're still not totally sold on both of them. Drew Thorpe because he just made his big league debut, and Jonathan Cannon because he's only 23 years old. Garrett Crochet is the guy. This is the guy that survived the teardown of the rest of the young starting pitching that became middle-aged starting pitching that you had. You didn't have to deal Dylan Cease. You could have kept Lucas Giolito if you wanted to extend him, and I think that the White Sox should have. Maybe in hindsight, given the fact that the team's not that competitive, it could have been a good move to let him go away. But I'm a big Lucas Giolito fan, and I thought the White Sox should have held on to him. But Garrett Crochet is putting up the type of numbers that suggest that he should be with this team for the long term. A couple of other really interesting statistics for him. In terms of his hard hit ball rate, it's at 36.4%. That's the lowest of his career amongst the 4 qualified seasons that he is in here. And you look at his ground ball rates. His ground ball rate is at 44.3%, which is the best it's been since his rookie year when his ground ball rate was at 61.5. His fly ball rate is only at 27.4%, which is a stark difference from what it was last year at 34.2%. So these might just seem like numbers that I'm throwing out at you, but Garrett Crochet is the type of guy that, at least right now, is proving that he has the ability to be that ace and is probably going to, assuming now that he has had his Tommy John surgery, you have to safely assume that he is going to stay healthy. And that if he continues at the rate that he is, that he will be one of the best starting pitchers in the American League over the next 2 to 3 years. And hopefully a little bit further down the road into that. Garrett Crochet, at this point, if I can do math, he's only 25 years old. So he's got a lot of life left in his arm, and he is going to be one of those guys that if his stuff continues to where it is, he will have this type of stuff, and he will have the type of year for years to come over the next 10 years. That's optimistically what I'm thinking for Garrett Crochet. And that's the type of guy that one of the things the White Sox, I think, did really well in the previous regime is they identified starting pitchers, good college starters. They didn't necessarily develop all of them, but they drafted really solid college starting pitchers. And Garrett Crochet is one of the guys that I think that the Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn regime hit on as, okay, we see a guy with great stuff. We see him as the modern day Chris Sale, somebody that we can draft and plug in the big leagues right away. And that's exactly what they did. They did the same thing with Chris Sale back in 2010, put him in the bullpen. This is what the White Sox did with Garrett Crochet in the COVID season of 2020, and they needed left-handed arms out of the bullpen that year. They were very weak on lefties during the COVID year. If I'm trying to remember the White Sox bullpen correctly during that COVID year, it was really only Aaron Bummer in terms of reliable left-handed pitchers. And if I'm wrong here, again, I'm trying to go off a lot of this stuff from memory because I can only pull up so many tabs in front of me. And as I look at one monitor and 2 monitors, for those of you listening on the podcast, this doesn't really matter, but I want to be able to keep my focus on you, staring into your soul and being able to tell you exactly what I feel about a bunch of the topics that we have at hand, so I don't, keep looking to the side and you look at my ugly face and hopefully I'm trying to pull it up a little bit, but I'm also a little bit sunburned here. Nobody actually cares one iota about what I'm saying right now in terms of my appearance, because that's not why you came here. You came here for White Sox content. So I want to look at Garrett Crochet's game logs so far this season. He has been awesome in the month of June. He has gone at least 5 2/3 innings in 7 straight starts. In fact, since May, he has made 10 starts in the month of May. He has gone at least 5 innings in all of them. He had a couple of rough starts at the end of April, 4 2/3, where he gave up 5 runs against the Cincinnati Reds, 3 innings at the Phillies where he gave up 7 runs, and then 4 innings against the Twins where he gave up 5 runs. But he's been striking out guys left and right here. He's had 2 starts in the month of June against the Red Sox on June 7th, 10 strikeouts in 6 innings, and then at Seattle on June 13th, he was spectacular. 7 innings of 1-run baseball, 2 walks, and 13 strikeouts. Just the second time in his career, with the first time actually being against the Atlanta Braves when they were at Guaranteed Rate Field in the first week of April. He went 7 innings, struck out 8, and allowed just 3 hits in 7 innings of work. So Garrett Crochet is going to be the White Sox All-Star. I don't think there's a doubt in anybody's mind about that. I don't think there's anybody on this team that's putting up the type of statistics. And you want to talk about where the White Sox are as a team, and you want to talk about percentages, and I can do some quick math here as I pull up the handy-dandy calculator on my phone. Garrett Crochet, and I know that wins don't necessarily matter in the modern scheme of baseball, but Garrett Crochet has 6 wins so far this year. 6. The White Sox as a team have 21. He has 29% of the team's total wins as the guy that pitches once every 5 days. That's insane to me. That it's not insane that he's having the type of success that he has, but it's insane to me that he's literally the only guy that when he goes out there, it feels like, oh, we have to win today. He is win day guy. He is what you felt like about Dylan Cease 2 years ago. When Dylan Cease took the mound in 2021, he was the guy that said, you have to win this start. You have to, because he's that good. And Garrett Crochet is 6-6. You want to talk about some of the games that he has lost, where he has pitched well, where he has earned the loss. Opening game against the Tigers, took the loss. 1-0 game. 1 run in 6 innings. Now, 3 of his losses, which came in consecutive starts in April, he gave up, and those were the starts we went through where he went fewer than 5 innings and gave up at least 5 runs. His last 2 losses, though, May 26th against the Orioles, 6 innings, 2 runs, 11 strikeouts, loss. June 19th against the Astros, 6 innings, 3 runs, 8 strikeouts, loss. So, with the exception of opening day against the Tigers and the start against the Orioles at the end of May, 4 of his 6 losses, he's allowed at least 3 runs. Now, you look at the starts that he's won. Against the Braves, 1 run, 7 innings. At St. Louis, 1 run, 6 innings. Against Cleveland and Washington, 2 starts in a row, 6 and 5 innings respectively, no runs. Then at Toronto, 6 innings, no runs. He had a stretch in May of 3 consecutive starts with no earned runs allowed, no total runs allowed. That's a span of, as I try and do math quickly in my head, 17 consecutive innings. In 5 starts in the month of May, he pitched 29 total innings and allowed just 3 total earned runs. That's how good he's been. You have to keep this guy in the organization for the long term. And I say that because we talked about what is going to be going on moving forward in terms of what this organization does. And I think that we're at a point with the White Sox at this point where you worry about them selling low. And they can sell low on a few guys. There are some guys that, with contracts that they have, and we'll get to it in our second segment with Eloy Jimenez, there are guys that they want to sell low on just so they can get rid of the contracts. I bet if they could get rid of Andrew Benintendi's contract at the deadline, they would, but they can't because they've got 3 more years on it after this year, and he hasn't done diddly squat to where anybody wants to pay that contract. Garrett Crochet is the guy you have to stay invested in for a long period of time. And if the White Sox don't invest in him over a long period of time, then whatever chances you have, in my opinion, of being competitive 3 years down the road are all but out the window. Whatever you envision the Chicago White Sox rotation being in the year 2027, or let's even kick it down the road 2028. Let's go another presidential election cycle. Garrett Crochet has to be a part of that. Full stop. Our next topic is in regards to somebody that I think is a disappointment to a lot of White Sox fans based on the potential that he had and the rookie season that he had, which, gosh, is now 5 years ago, and that's Eloy Jimenez. Eloy Jimenez is that relationship that you just can't get out of. There are a lot of issues with the relationship. She breaks your heart over and over and over again. But at the same time, when she makes you happy, it's the greatest thing in the world. Like, Eloy Jimenez at his best is the best part of a toxic relationship. Because when he's on, he's one of the best power hitters in the game. The problem is that he's never healthy. Eloy Jimenez played 120 games last year. I want to make sure that I get this right, and I have his stats pulled up in front of me. Eloy Jimenez played 120 games last year. That's only the second time in his career that he has played over 100 games in a season. The first was his rookie year, where he played 122. Eloy Jimenez's rookie year hit 31 homers and drove in 79 runs, hit 267. Now, he's had years where he's had higher batting averages. But in terms of power and run production numbers, he's never gotten above 20 homers in the 4 subsequent years since, and that's because he hasn't been healthy. And he has not hit above 65 RBI, which he had 64 last year, which is the best number that he'd had in a single season other than his rookie year. I made mention of it on Monday's show, but NBC Sports Chicago, and I'm not going to go through it, but they basically ran through every single time that Eloy Jimenez had been injured or been put on the IL. Sunday, and I didn't make mention of it on Monday's episode, but Sunday, you could clearly see if you were watching the broadcast that Eloy Jimenez once again had issues with his hamstrings, and he's trying to wave to Pedro Grifol in the dugout and say that he was good, he's fine, and that he's completely healthy. But he clearly wasn't healthy. He was clearly in a position where he was going to end up really paying the price if he went full effort. But again, at this point with Eloy Jimenez, what is healthy? What is the acceptable rate of health that he can play at? Can he do anything other than DH? The answer really is no. But I don't think that Eloy Jimenez, given where his contract is, and he's got 2 years left on his deal, which he was signed to well ahead of time in the Rick Hahn era of signing all these guys to cheap contracts before they became really expensive. $16.5 million a year seemed like a great deal at the time when he's hitting 31 homers and coming in 4th in Rookie of the Year voting. Now it seems like a complete boondoggle. How are you going to get rid of $16.5 million a year for 2 years for a guy that has only played 100 games twice in his career? And he's not going to play 100 games this year. I mean, it's just, he's only played 39 games so far this year. So he's basically missed half the season. And no doubt he's going to end up getting hurt again. He will have another IL stint this year. So what do you do with Eloy Jimenez? Is it how he trains? Is it the White Sox training staff? You know, he went from being 275 down to 240. So it's not like he's not trying to keep himself in shape. Some guys just have bad parts. The late, great, departed Bill Walton, who is, from my days in the Pac 12, one of the most beloved figures in the history of sport. Bill Walton, in his autobiography, said that he had 30 or close to 30 orthopedic surgeries. Bill Walton's ankles and feet didn't grow properly. I think it was something in regards to how thin the bones in the top of his foot were. But man, I'm telling you, Eloy Jimenez just has hamstrings that don't work properly. And it's really sad because when you see him at his best, you see one of the best power bats in the American League and a guy that should have been a perennial all-star. Maybe there is still something to be saved with Eloy Jimenez, but I don't think it's in the White Sox organization. And certainly if it is in the White Sox organization, you look at the way that this team operates and you look at the contract that he has. If they can't trade him, they're not going to cut him. You know, the White Sox are not an organization that is going to cut guys with multiple years left on their contract. That's just not how they function. It's never how they've functioned. So for me, the White Sox, in some form or another, have to sell low on Eloy Jimenez. And I don't think that they can necessarily do it this year. But I also think that if they get an offer for him, they have to take it, no matter what it is. I don't think he's tradable this year. I don't think he's tradable until he has a stretch where he can play 130 games in a season. That's what people think about when they think about Eloy Jimenez at this point. Or it's a situation where, let's just say for the sake of argument, the $33 million that are left on his contract, if you trade him in the offseason last year or next year, whoever you trade him to, you eat 75% of the salary. Now, the White Sox are not going to be willing to do that. In fact, if you have to eat 75% to get rid of Eloy Jimenez, then just eat the 100 and keep him and see what he can do. The thing is that there's nobody at this point that, when they're healthy, is going to be better than Eloy Jimenez when he's healthy. And to me, I think that is going to end up being the biggest issue in terms of actually offloading him. The White Sox are not going to win with Eloy Jimenez. And that means when they win, they are going to be to a point in the future where he's long gone. Unless he somehow finds the fountain of health and is able to come back on a cheap deal and be a productive part of this organization into his late 20s and early 30s. I just don't trust that at this point. Eloy Jimenez is a guy with a huge injury history. He's 27 years old. I actually didn't realize that Eloy Jimenez was 27 years old. He made his big league debut at age 22, but he's not a spring chicken, which I always thought was a weird term. I don't know why we're comparing baseball players or really people of age to chickens. Never made sense to me. Unless you want to go back and talk about Jim Harbaugh's relationship with his chickens back when he was the coach at Michigan. Which, by the way, total non sequitur. If you want to get something entertaining, like just YouTube Jim Harbaugh chickens. And he apparently says that his chicks back in Ann Arbor, Michigan, when he'd come home, they were happy to see him. Like, is a chicken really happy to see another human being? I don't think so. That's not something I buy. But moving forward, one of the hardest things to say about doing this show at this point in time is that there are so many decisions that you don't know what is or isn't the right decision to make for this organization. What sets you up in the future? Eloy Jimenez was the future until he was the present. And he's not the future anymore. he's the past. He's the present that should soon become the past. And I hate the people that go on social media and rip Eloy for not trying or dogging it or what have you. It's not his fault that he keeps getting hurt. He just might have bad parts. I don't question a Major League Baseball player's training regimen. Eloy Jimenez is a strong guy. But some guys just aren't meant to play certain positions. I thought years ago that Eloy was probably a better designated hitter than he was anything else. And I didn't understand when the White Sox were putting him in right field because he could barely show the ability to play left field. So I didn't understand why they were putting him in right field when he did have outings in right field. I want to see something productive from Eloy Jimenez the rest of the year. You know, in 39 games, he's hit 5 homers and has 13 runs batted in. Assuming that he can stay healthy and continue to play the rest of the year, he's hitting 231. He's having, injuries aside, he's having the worst year he's ever had. This is the worst year of Eloy Jimenez's career. And unless it gets better in the next 6 weeks, not even 6 weeks, unless it gets better in the next 4 weeks, you're not going to be able to trade him. And he's going to be a part of your team on opening day in 2025. I know how the White Sox like to classify certain projects. Like they were talking about, you know, the Oscar Colosses of the world and the Colson Montgomerys in Project Birmingham. The White Sox need to have something that they call Project Eloy. And that is getting Eloy back to a point, maybe not where you thought he would be coming off of his rookie year or what you saw with him coming up through the Cubs minor league organization. They need to get him to a point where he can stay healthy and be a guy that can hit 25 homers a year. Have him play 130 games a year and hit 25 homers a year. Somebody would want that. You'll get value for that. You'll be able to go through another organization's minor league system. Now, if Eloy Jimenez somehow finds a way to get hot, then maybe one of those wild card teams in the National League, or maybe even a team in the American League like the Tampa Bay Rays, will take a flyer on him and say, hey, we can find a way to make something out of him. Eloy Jimenez just might need a change of scenery. It might be that simple. Although I don't think health is necessarily that simple when you talk about a guy that has spent as much time on the injured list as he has. But more than likely, Eloy Jimenez is going to be your starting designated hitter on opening day 2025. Just as Andrew Benintendi is going to be your starting left fielder. And assuming he's healthy, Yoan Moncada is going to be your starting third baseman. These are contracts you just can't get rid of. For one way or another, because the average annual value is too high. And the issues in terms of health are significant. Now, Yoan Moncada is a completely different story in this regard because he's been out for a significant amount of time. He's on the 60-day. He's probably not going to come back this year. Yoan Moncada, he's just not what the Sox hoped he would be. And again, like 2019, 25 homers, 79 RBI, hit 315. He's just unfortunately not the guy the White Sox hoped he was going to be. But Yoan Moncada is a guy that's got 1 year left on his contract, and then next year on an expiring deal, they can find a way to deal him. But I'm less concerned about Yoan Moncada because he's a sunk cost at this point. He's not coming back this year, and you only have to pay him for 1 more year. And the numbers that he's put up over the last couple of years, like, 2021, 14 homers in 144 games, 61 runs driven in with a 263 average. 2022, he hit 212 in 104 games. 2023, he only played 92 games, hit 260, but 11 homers, 40 runs batted in. This is not a guy that's worth the, I think, $25 million a year. Yeah, 5 years, 70 got a 25 team. Oh, so his team option is for 2025. So I'll take back what I said. This is it for Yohan Makata. So you don't have to necessarily worry about him. Where did I read on Spot Track that, oh, the 2025 is the team option? Apparently, I'm not reading these colors correctly. So forgive me for trying to figure out a bunch of this on the fly. But my point being, Eloy Jimenez is somebody that it's unfortunately a lost cause. May not be necessarily a lost cause for his career, but for the White Sox, this is no longer somebody that you can rely upon to be a part of your organization for years to come. And on that nice, happy note, we're going to say goodbye here on Believe in White Sox. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, leave a review, hopefully 5 stars, leave some comments. If this is a 1-star show, you can leave that review as well. In the words of the great Mike Gundy, I'm a man. I'm not 40, but I'll just say for the sake of that, I'm a man, I'm 40. I'm actually 31, but, when you're bald, nobody actually knows how old you are. I get as young as 17 sometimes, and sometimes people think I'm in my early 50s, which is very strange, and I don't know if I should be happy or concerned. I like to think I have a good workout routine, but maybe it could get better. Anywho, that's it. That's all. This has been another edition of Believe in White Sox. We will talk to you Friday morning.